you can see the PowerPoint is really short today. So today is going to be all about refining and finishing your animal project. So these are the steps. This is what I would like you to write down on that next page in your notebook. So the first step, of course, is to check and see which stage your animal is in. And I would hope by this point, if you've been following along with all the steps, that it is in the leather hard stage or the dry leather hard stage, where it still has like coolness to it, still has moisture in it, but it's really pretty strong. So that's the stage that we would hope for today. When you have assessed what stage your animal is in, you're going to pick it up and we're going to smooth the bottom. And I'm going to show you that in the demo today. But the bottom, even though we don't see the bottom of your animal, we still want it to be smooth. So there's nothing sharp down there. Everything is joined really well down there. And so your animal really has to be pretty strong for us to be able to safely flip it over and clean up the bottom. Then, as long as you're looking at the bottom of your animal, I'm going to expect you to carve your name or your initials and your hour number into the bottom. So you'd put your name and a 3 in the bottom of your animal. And that is because if you were to bring it in to fire, I would need to identify who brought in that animal and what hour they came from. And even if you don't plan to bring anything in to fire this trimester, I still expect you to make it as though you were going to fire it. So I'll be showing you that, how I want you to sign your name and do your number on the bottom. And then you're going to wipe away the spurs. The spurs are those little boogers that get displaced when you draw or write in the clay. So we're going to brush those spurs away. Then you're going to flip your animal back over. And I've been talking about this a little bit already, but today you definitely need to make sure it's done. You're going to poke 2 or 3 secret holes, secret air holes in the head of your animal. There's already a hole in the body of your animal when you cut that lid, but there might not be any holes in the head yet. And so we're going to look for super sneaky little places where we could make those holes where they kind of blend in or are not seen, but they will create an air passageway that allows the air that's trapped inside the head of your animal to escape so it doesn't blow up in the kiln. And again, even if you know you're not going to fire this, you still need to make it as though you were going to fire it so you can show me that you have those skills. So then your assignment for today is to simply take a picture of wherever the air passageways are, where are those secret air holes, take a close-up photo of that for today, and that's what you're going to submit by 10 p.m. Then, once you've got those air holes and everything is pretty well squared away with your animal, you're going to do one final softening or refining of the entire form, just so everything is really smooth, really soft, really refined, really looking its best. And after you do that, the clay is probably going to be rehydrated and it might move back into the leather hard or even plastic stage, depending on how much water you've used. And so we don't want to do anything more with it at that point. We're going to bag it back up and let it just sit like that in the bag over the weekend. And even if you're 100% done, still bag this up, because if it were to get bumped by your cat or knocked off your table or anything like that, we want to be able to still repair it. So we want to keep it leather hard, even if you're 100% done. So it goes back in a bag for the weekend. So those are your steps for today. That's it. So take a picture of this if you didn't finish writing yet. And then I'm going to demonstrate what you're going to be doing, like how you will do those steps. So I'm going to stop sharing in 3, 2, 1. All right, I lied. There's one more slide. You don't have to write this down. This is just to make sure that you're aware of what's happening next week. Monday and Tuesday, no school. Wednesday, your animal project is due. You're going to submit a video of your animal and an artist statement about your animal, and I will explain all of that on Wednesday. Thursday, we will have a quiz review. Remember, quiz? I've been talking about it like on and off for 2 weeks now. The quiz review will be in class, and then you'll be able to take the quiz right after class. All right. And that's where I haven't made the quiz yet, but it's going to be around 30 points. And then Friday, again, you don't have school. I do, but you do not. And then just as a reminder, the following week, Tuesday, February 16th, 11th and 12th graders are back for hybrid learning. So I guess A kids will be back one of the days and B kids will be back one of the days. So maybe you won't all be back on the Tuesday. But that's kind of looking ahead to the long range plan. Okay. Any questions on any of that stuff, like our schedule? No questions on the schedule? Okay. So then I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to start demonstrating. Okay. So I have my little chameleon. I finished doing the textures on him yesterday. So he is largely pretty complete at this point. So I've kind of checked to see which stage he's in, and it feels like pretty leather hard or kind of dry leather hard. If I touch it, it's not sticky wet, but if I touch it, I do feel coolness. So that's a good sign that it's leather hard, that it still has water in it. So I'm going to flip this over, and I need my towel. So I'm going to grab my towel. So if you feel like your animal is secure enough, you can flip it upside down in your towel so that it is supported. It's not going to get dented on the backside, and that way you can have hands free to work on the bottom of your creature. So I've already been doing a little bit of melding with whatever clay I can get to move on the bottom. So I'm blending in the feet, I'm blending in the legs, I blended in the tail. You don't really need distinction of body parts on the bottom. So then I'm going to take my sponge and I'm just going to kind of soften and smooth everything a little bit, just to get rid of those little spurs or boogers that if this were to be fired, they would be really sharp. I'm just softening as much as I can. That's pretty good right there. And then I need to sign my name and write my hour number on the bottom. So I'm going to write Trisha Schmidt. Actually, I'm just going to write Trisha S because I don't have enough room to write Schmidt. You can write your initials too. That's fine. And then I'm going to put a 3 on the bottom. Okay. So just so it's clear so that I can read it. And then once you've drawn on there, I just used a pencil. You can also use your paper clip or your toothpick. Just kind of press down any little spurs that are sticking up there from drawing into the clay. Just re-embed them by lightly pressing down with your fingertip. Okay, so I smoothed up the bottom. That step is done. So I'm going to put it back on my board, and I'm going to look and see if there's any other things I need to fix or change on the body. That's looking pretty good. I already poked the exit holes, and I did that by taking a toothpick, and the toothpick goes all the way inside the nostrils. So I have 2 air holes in the nostrils of my animal. I also poked one in the mouth. So that hole goes all the way in too. So your exit hole, your air hole, doesn't have to be any bigger than a toothpick. All right, so just poke 2 or 3 toothpick holes. You can sometimes do it in the pupil of the eyes because then that's kind of disguised. Nostrils make a good spot. The mouth makes a good spot. Or if you really have no good spots to disguise a hole in the head of your animal, on the bottom, underside of the head, you can poke a few holes up through the bottom of the head into that space that's trapped inside the head. So we just need a place for that air to escape, and we'll put a few of them in there just to be sure that one of them will work. Okay, even that tiny little hole, those couple tiny little holes will ensure that your project doesn't blow up. And then that's what I would take a photo of today. I would take a close-up of his snout because that's where the air holes are. So then the finishing step, I've kind of already done, but I just want to show you a few things that you could try. So one of the things I did, and this was not written in your steps, but I wanted the opening of my animal to be a little bit bigger because I plan to use this for a succulent, for a plant. So I wanted a little bit bigger opening. So what I did is I took my carving tool that I made yesterday and I just carved out this inside a little bit deeper. I widened the opening a little bit. I can't change the shape of the opening though, because otherwise the lid won't fit inside. So all that I changed was kind of this interior just to make that hole be a little bit bigger so I could store more stuff in it or fit more dirt or fit more plant in there. And then all the little shavings that I ended up shaving away, those you want to just kind of shake out, like dislodge and shake them out as best you can so they don't dry inside there. So that's an optional thing. You don't have to do that, but it's something you may want to do if you want to make this opening just a smidge bigger. Just make sure that you're not changing the shape of the opening because this fitted lid still has to fit. Now, another thing you can do, I have a paintbrush here. This is probably a lot bigger than the paintbrush I gave you. So if you have a different paintbrush at your house, that would be ideal, like a bigger paintbrush like you would use to actually paint your house. That would be perfect. So if you get that wet, I'm using this to do some smoothing inside the body of my animal where the sponge really can't get to. And I'm also using the paintbrush to soften everything. I did a texture over this whole animal, and I did that by poking holes in it with a pencil. And some of the holes poked a little bit deeper, and some of the holes were a little bit more shallow. And I just wanted to kind of tone down that texture a little bit and kind of dial it back because it was a little bit extreme. So I'm just softening everything, smoothing everything with this wet paintbrush to try and make it be still so my texture shows, but it's just not as blatant. It's not as strong of a texture. And this is a way of smoothing and refining and getting into all those nooks and crannies. And plus, I think this is a really fun step, painting water on your project to kind of smooth it all, just kind of brings it all together and makes it look really good. Now, I did give you a paintbrush, and if you want to use the paintbrush I gave you, that's totally fine. It's just that for most of you, that paintbrush is probably kind of tiny, and it will take longer. But you can use that tiny paintbrush if you want, but also realize that you can't paint this water on here if your clay is already wet. So it really needs to be in that dry, leather hard stage for you to do this painting step, because you're going to be rehydrating the clay by painting this water on there. And so if you rehydrate the clay too much, your clay will become flimsy again. It will become plastic, and then it'll get all sticky, and then it'll get all messed up. And we don't want to run the risk of that. So really make sure it's pretty dry and firm before you do the final refining. And you can use your sponge too. I just feel like the paintbrush is a little bit more forgiving, and it goes inside the nooks and crannies, and it doesn't flatten things as much. Especially if you have a texture. So you can use a sponge too. I just feel like a slightly larger paintbrush will work better. So I do have to be careful now that I painted where my lid goes. I want to be careful not to just put my lid right on there because it could stick. So I'm just going to set the lid next to it. So if I already have taken a picture of the air holes, all that I would have to do is bag this up for the weekend, and that would be it for today. Okay, so really pretty quick if you've been keeping up. Sorry, the chat just popped up. If you have been keeping up with each day's work, this should be approximately where you are at too. But if you need the weekend to get caught up, it's okay. Use the weekend to get caught up. Just be diligent, set goals for yourself, and accomplish maybe everything in one day that you need to get caught up, or set little goals to accomplish a little bit each day, whatever's more comfortable for you. But we want to be able to move on after Wednesday when this is due. So I'm going to stop recording and